Hey there! Today we'll have a look at this pen, and this is a pen model that I have reviewed before. This is the Pilot Vanishing Point, but this is their Metallics series, and this is the Valley Green. And it's a fascinating pen. It was sent to me by Pilot. Thank you, Pilot. And today I thought we'd have a look at this. I have reviewed the matte black Vanishing Point that I actually liked a lot. So if you've seen this is going to be a bit of a reiteration of what I said there, I think, but there are some differences. Okay, let's start with the parts of the pen. Then I'll tell you what I like about it and don't like about it, and I'll do a writing sample. Here you have what is usually the cap end, but this is not really a cap, because if you know the Vanishing Point, you know that you push this button and then the nib pops out, which is kind of nice. So this would be the cap end. You have that matte black. I'm pretty sure that's the same matte black as on the entirely matte black Vanishing Point. Here you have a nice metallic green. The clip is relatively tight, but it's very usable. And you have a feature that I always liked a lot. This is where the cap end and the barrel end meet. I've always liked those black double rings. And then you get the barrel and this fairly large push knob. Now maybe you're interested in the inner workings of the pen. The nib right there, I don't know how well you can see it in this light, but the nib is shielded, and when you push that button it pops out of there. Okay, now on the inside you can unscrew this. You have to be a little careful because that's spring loaded, so this kind of pops off a little. Is the nib unit. As you can see, this has leaked ink a little bit, but there is a gold nib in there, which is actually covered with black material in this particular model. You have the unit with the feed is built in, and then in there is a simple cartridge, a converter in this case, but also takes cartridges, and that's pretty much all there is to it. You slide it back in, of course a little careful you don't mess up the nib on the inside. You just slide it in, and then there is a little slot. Let me focus for you, sorry. There's a little slot, you see, that slides in place, and then you just screw the whole thing back in place. Okay, what do I like about the pen? What do I not like about the pen? I think this is a very practical pen, and the reason for that is that if you like using fountain pens, but you are out there, whatever context you consider out there, but in the field doing stuff, you have to take quick notes, then having something like this and unscrewing the cap or even pulling off the cap can be a bit of a bother, whereas with this pen you can just carry it any way you like, pull it out, and with one hand operate it and use it. That is something that I very much enjoy, and of course that's the main appeal. For me, it's not about this being a type of novelty fountain pen, but it's a very practical pen, and the design kind of grew on me. At first I enjoyed the Vanishing Point, but I wasn't really sure, and now I really see its practical applications. I like that. I like the overall design. However, what I don't like is the way they have designed the section, have placed the clip. As you may see, you can see that this clip is fairly broad there, and gets narrower right there, and gets broader again. And the idea is that you put your fingers in that narrow bit, and then you hold the pen to write, and I'm just going to activate the nib there. That's something you would end up with. Now, I find this to be relatively uncomfortable, and the reason is the space right there between your fingers. See that between your thumb and your middle finger, they can't really touch. And the weird thing is, I've also used an old model Vanishing Point, which is faceted, and this end seems to be a little thinner or something, and there your fingers do touch, and I found that to be much more comfortable. And my problem with this is that I can definitely use this pen for short notes, but what I always do with a pen for review purpose is I write a full page in one sitting, so one A4 page without interruptions, just straight, and after about, I think, 5 or 6 lines, my fingers already started to hurt and cramp up. So for me, and the problem is not that I have very small hands that this won't fit. I just can't really make this fit comfortably. Also, whereas with most standard fountain pens, something like this, just an Amiki Falcon, you can rotate the nib a little bit. If you really rotate a lot, you need an oblique nib, but you can typically get away with a little bit of rotation and it will still write. But with this pen you can't really. And the reason is that design, where if you rotate it too much, the clip gets in the way and you can't really hold it anymore. And for me, that's an issue. It limits the applications of this pen for me for longer writing sessions. Now the final thing I wanted to say is that on my black model, I had a broad nib, which was also, at first I had regular, the rhodium plated, and then I also got a black coated nib, which they launched at some point, and both wrote pretty well. This is a fine black nib, and I find this to have a lot of feedback. And of course it is a fine, it's a Japanese fine, meaning it's pretty much a Western extra fine, and it is coated with a black material, and I'm pretty sure they have coated the nib tipping as well. And in my experience, if manufacturers do that, that really reduces the smoothness of the nib, because think about it, you have the balls of iridium type material, whatever it is, hard metal, that glides across the paper, but if you put some type of coating on that, that is going to increase friction a little bit. You could grind that off if you would want to, but it looks cool, but for me, this is not a pen I can use for longer writing sessions, and it being fine, that induces some extra feedback, but I would not personally buy this nib. Okay, let's take a couple of measurements while we're at it, and then I'll do a writing sample. As capped length, I'm just going to measure this with the nib retracted. That's 140.4 millimeters or 5.52 inches. With the nib extended, the nib pops out, but the button at the end, of course, gets pushed in. Then I have 5.40 inches or 137.3 millimeters. Section diameter, I'm measuring it with the clip in the middle, is about 10.5 millimeters or 0.41 of an inch. And the barrel diameter is 12.5 or 0.49 of an inch. Weight, the pen is, I think there's about a third of ink in the converter. It is a lot of metal. The pen weighs in at 28 grams. So it's, I would say that's a decent weight. Okay, that's more than enough talk. Let's have a look at how the pen writes. That's what's coming up next. I hope this was useful. I again thank Pilot for sending me the pen, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we go with the Pilot Vanishing Point in F, and the ink is a Sailor Epina. Okay, let's do some writing. You may hear the feedback. It's definitely a feedbacky nib. Alright, some fast writing. See how everything keeps up. I would say that looks pretty good. It does keep up. It does do what it's supposed to do. And I wouldn't really call it's not that it's scratchy, it's not that the tines are misaligned, nothing like that, it's just a lot of feedback. Okay, you see there's some hard starts too. As to wetness, well, it is a fine, but even so I think it is a relatively wet nib, so that's nice. As to line variation, you see you can squeeze some out, which is nice. Reverse writing, something that some people really enjoy, but usually they do that to make the nib a bit finer. This gives a very annoying scrapey feeling, but it will work. But as I said, the nib is already quite fine to begin with, so I don't really know what that would add. Okay, thanks again to Pilot for sending me this pen. I hope this review was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.